Tom Verducci. He'll do a wonderful job there in the analyst chair. And Tom, nice to have you with us. And I just said it. You know, I'd be very concerned if I was Cora or if I was Bloom about my inability to win a series in the division. They have lost 2 to Baltimore, 3 to Toronto, 2 to Tampa, and the Yankees. And they're not going to win this series either. Maybe they get a split, but they're not going to win. And I would be very concerned by that. I know their pitchers are banged up, and they get a couple of them back, but that would bother me. What's your take on that first? Let me hear.
Yeah, no, I agree, Chris. Listen, the Yankees are going to run away. They are already and will in the second half of the season. They're not going to be caught. So Boston is playing essentially for a playoff spot and competing against 2 other teams in their division. And I know that you look at their schedule and they say, well, they got 15 games against Baltimore late in the season. Or whatever the number is against the Orioles. And you know what? The Orioles are a much tougher team than a lot of us thought they would be, and they're tougher than they were early in the season. They're getting better as the season goes on. So, yeah, there's concern here for the Red Sox, I believe. Definitely injuries have played a part in where they are right now. When they get fully healthy, they need Michael Wacha to get back at full health. He's got a dead arm right now. And, of course, Sale and Evaldi need to get back into the rotation. But there's some issues here. There's definitely issues here with this team that I think may have to be addressed at the trade deadline. But I agree with you. The record within the division, that is troublesome for the Boston Red Sox.
Do you think these teams like the Red Sox, you know, maybe a team like, Toronto, maybe a team like the White Sox, knowing that they have the 3 games instead of the 1 game, and it's a series in October, wild card round, do you think those teams will be a little bit more aggressive at the deadline to add, knowing it's not a 1-game shootout at the end of the year?
Yeah, I do think they will be, Chris. Now, that it doesn't look like it's shaping up as a great market in terms of star power. But, yes, I think in terms of looking for some finishing pieces for a ball club for Boston, I still look at first base and right field, for instance. I think they need another bat in that lineup. Maybe some more help for the bullpen. But, yeah, you think about not just playing 3 games instead of 1, but that difference between hosting those 3 games or playing them all on the road is huge. So seeding is important. So it could make for some very interesting races down the stretch, even if you're not talking about winning a division, but where you wind up in the seeding, because I would not want to be in that situation to play 3 games on the road and have to win 2 of those.
Yeah, very good point. Remember, and it's kind of strange. It's one thing for the divisional winner to get all 3 games at home, but the best wild card team gets all 3 games at home, too. And that's what Tom is referring to there. The Yankees, listen, Houston is their kryptonite. I actually think, Tom, that because of this regular season, Joe Torre, you wrote books with him, so you know, he likes the 99 season better than 98 because 98 put so much pressure on him off that regular season. And the Yankees are going to be in that same boat this year. They haven't been to a World Series in 13 years, number one. Torre's team won in 96. They only had a 2-year gap. This team's got a 13-year gap. And they're going to have such a great regular season that they're going to have to go out there and win a championship, which puts more pressure on a team that has not fared well in postseason play. Would that concern you at all, looking at the Yankee prospects in October?
Well, it wouldn't concern me, but it is a factor. It wouldn't concern me because I do think the Yankees are that talented. They're that deep. And I think the secret sauce of this team has been pitching and especially defense. And that really plays well in October. I know a lot of people look at the percentage of runs they score on home runs, and it's extremely high. That, to me, is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not a major strikeout team. They just hit a lot of home runs. That's a good thing. But I think playing close games with their pitching and defense, to me, is what bodes well. Because I go back, and you mentioned this 98 team, Chris, and, yeah, they had a tremendous amount of pressure on them, none more so than when they fell behind Cleveland 2-1 in the ALCS. They felt the pressure, and that's when they gave the ball to Orlando Hernandez. And if you remember, he pitched a great game on the road to even up that series.
Sure did.
So I always said the best thing about those Yankees teams was they could match up their number 4 against your number 1 and still feel good about the chances to win the game. And I think this year a guy like Nestor Cortez can be that kind of a guy where he can start a game 4 for the Yankees and be a stopper for them. Now, he pitched really well his last start. I know he had a couple of hiccups before that. But I look at this rotation and the defense behind him and say they can match up no matter how the rotation falls against anybody else's rotation.
In a best-of-7 series right now, do you think the Yankees would beat the Astros?
Maybe it depends on home field, which they would have. So I might say yes, but I do think the Yankees have the Astros have exactly the kind of pitching that matches up well against New York. When you play the Yankees, it's all about, I believe, keeping the big right-handed power hitters in the ballpark. And the Astros pitching can do that. When you think about even Javier with the slider that he showed against the Yankees, against those right-handed hitters, just devastating. McCullers is going to be back in about another month. We've seen him match up very well against the New York Yankees with the right-handed breaking stuff against the right-handed hitters. Verlander is back to where he was. I'm sure they'll be careful with his innings in the second half of the season to make sure he's on point in October. And Valdez can just beat anybody. He's got the kind of stuff he can throw in the strike zone and beat good lineups. So to me, that's the one team when you say who's got the swing and miss stuff, who can beat you in the strike zone to beat this devastating Yankee lineup, it would be Houston. And I'm not sure anybody else is number two in terms of the amount of great arms that could beat you in the strike zone the way Houston has.
100%. You know, a lot of Met fans tell me this, and I think there's a lot to it. I know Buck's great, and I know the Mets have shown and answered most questions so far this year. 2 games in L.A. after they lost the first 2. Last night against the horrendous Reds. Do the Mets have the constitution? They're going to play a lot of games against Atlanta, 9 in August, 3 next week, 3 at the end of the year. Do you think down deep, the inwards of the Mets against a team that obviously knows how to win, championships, Snitker, winning culture, do you think the Mets going head-to-head with Atlanta for a division, do they have what it takes to fight them off and win the NL East? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I would not question that, Chris, about the Mets, because I think early on they won some games coming from behind late, right? And when you have a group that has, let's face it, a lot of new parts to it, there's nothing that bonds a team more than winning games that look like they're losses. You steal late in the game. They did that a few times, and we saw that again, you know, even against some of these lesser teams like Cincinnati last night. They can keep coming back on people, and I think that's why that team believes they're never out of a game. They find ways. They're very good at bats, by the way. You know, I've watched guys like Escobar and McNeil have really good at bats in situations where they just need a base runner rather than a long ball. So I think they play the game the right way. I think if there's an edge for me for Atlanta, they're a little bit younger. You know, the Mets have some age on that roster. The fact now that they will be pushed where it looked like they might run away with this division could factor in terms of the wear and tear down the stretch. Obviously, it doesn't include guys like Scherzer and when he gets back to Grom because they haven't had the innings pile up this year. But the position players are a little bit older. Atlanta's a little bit younger. But I would not question the Mets' resolve as far as winning some tight games.
Looking forward to watching you tonight with Bob. Good job, Tom. Thanks for some help today. Have a good ball game. Appreciate you coming on.